Call to order the meeting of the U46 School Board at 6:16. So our clerk is not present right now. Can I have someone help?
You can take notes.
Great. So to begin, I'd like to make a suggestion to amend the agenda so that we add at our end, after the report card and before adjournment, a quick update on the technical center reassignment issue that is pending. Is there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go into visitors and staff to be heard. Are there any visitors and staff to be heard? Hearing none, into the consent agenda. So we have approval of the warrants, which is routine and recommended. Approval of the meeting minutes from April 25th, which is also recommended. The principal reports that have been submitted ahead of time by both Rob and Bob. And a recommendation for a professional appointment. It is the appointment of Barbara Brody as a driver's education teacher for the Center for Technology, Essex. Does anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved.
Al, the second?
Second.
Aaron? Great. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? None? Essex Westford Unified School District update. This would be scheduled for both Al and Liz. So Al, if you would provide us an update of where the EWSD board is.
Yes. Well, I think we're making actually very good progress. The project manager has been assigned, and it's very personable, very experienced, and I think the board felt really good about the initial discussions. Liz has been doing some excellent work on the communications committee, but there are multiple committees that are currently working. The ones with the shortest timelines, I would say, are communications. There is one associated with, trying to think for a second here. It's the superintendent search.
Okay.
There's an urgency to start this process early because of all the contracts that have to be signed earlier. And Martha and Marla are both actively working to close those gaps. So you're going to see accelerated progress in those particular areas. The policy committee, Diane, West, and myself are have that assignment. We've taken, some of us have taken initiative in taking an early look at these policies, and there was an initial direction to go with the VSBA model. And frankly, there are a lot of things that we need to talk about as a committee and as a board as to what we want to do. Initially, the administration does not want to produce procedures to go along with the policies, and to leave that up to the superintendents to figure out. And that's a genuine concern, because I think in order to have clarity, the committee, the policy, the procedure, everyone needs to be on the same page to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Has the board retained counsel for things such as policy consultations? Is it Chris?
I think it's Chris, and that's all set. Newspaper record is all set.
Yeah.
Stipends are all set. Basically, anyone that's on a board doesn't get a stipend from UU. So we're trying to conserve money. The big decision coming up on the financial model, the HR system, there's a lot of major
Okay.
things that have to be, but steady progress, know where we're going. Every subcommittee of the board has to have warned meetings because it's work of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And a procedure is being developed right now by Lorna and Mark Andrews to come up with a published set procedure that meets all the legal requirements. So that's where we're at.
Okay. The meetings of the Essex Westford School District are is it the first and third Tuesday,
Right.
6 p.m. and
6:30,
6:30?
Yes.
And you're meeting at a standard location right now?
right here.
Right here.
Eventually, we'll be rotating
Yep.
through all the different schools.
But if people want to plug in, and then also there's the blog that's available.
That's correct.
And that, I'm just looking for what the, what that website is. So it's,
Yes,
Go ahead.
there's a link to it
Yeah.
on the CCSU
yeah.
page?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any questions with regards to the E EWSD?
Al, do you happen to remember off the top of your head the name of the project manager that they assigned?
French?
Dan French.
Oh, Dan French, okay.
Dan French.
Right.
And is the board considering hiring either VSBA or someone else to help with the search, the superintendent search?
They're reviewing that right now.
Okay.
Yeah. We, as far as I know, we haven't received a recommendation that we could vote on yet.
No.
But we should be moving in that, hopefully in that direction.
We're meeting on Monday, the 23rd, to review different organizations or people available to do that work.
Do that work?
So they're
Right,
reviewing those.
right. And our next meeting will be tomorrow evening, it's 6:30.
Right.
Judy, do you have offhand what the current vacancy rate looks like in the superintendencies in Vermont? Are all positions currently full with full-time employees, or?
Trying to think. I'll know better after this weekend because the superintendent's are all meeting this week.
Okay.
Might
Might be good for just an update through there. It just gives us a perspective of what the landscape looks like.
Right.
My understanding from the last time we went through it is there are some tremendously qualified candidates, but there's not a lot
Right.
of candidates.
Right.
Right. Leadership positions in general in the
Yes.
state of Vermont.
Great. Anything else on that topic? So we'll move into the report card information outreach update. So we'll hear an update for what occurred leading up to and on the 11th and what is planned, and we'll see if what the board has.
Questions are, so Rob and Amy Cole are here.
Do you want to join us, Amy?
Come to the table and can provide an update. Oh, great. Good timing.
Hello.
Hi. Right here.
Karen.
I had put it next to Liz.
We were just gonna start talking about the report card information outreach update.
Great. Great, thank you. She's taking the minutes for you. So that's great.
You waiting for me?
I'm not sure. We're,
All right, I just
Start
we
with
start
Rob.
with people.
okay.
So May 11th, we had a gathering in the cafeteria which will be repeated on the 25th for folks that couldn't make it on the 11th. And basically what it was communicating step one in terms of the process that the multi-year transition plan, which the board has seen on a couple of occasions, and specifically pulling out the 2 learning habits, explaining that and revisiting for the time being that the numerical scale will remain in effect for the academic grades and the 1 through 4 rubric in regards to the learning habits. Conversation, there was opportunities for folks to meet via table, and I was able to get around to a couple of the tables during the time period that ensued, and there was opportunity to ask questions. There are a number of questions on a website that has been created for questions to be posted, and we'll build off that towards the 25th. There also will be the opportunity before the end of school for students to see the proposed report card. When I say students, obviously not the graduating seniors, but the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen moving forward, so they can see and provide feedback what it will look like for next year. In terms of the transition plan, many in attendance, it was the first time they had seen that slide, so some of the feedback I received from the tables I went around ranged from, we haven't been moving fast enough, to thank you for doing what you're doing and not going too fast, and kind of everything in between. So, you know, I just think it's a matter of continuing to get the communication out about it's not, what's going to happen next year is not the end of the story, it's just the beginning of the story moving forward. So, I mean, conversations, I think, very legitimate moving forward are, so since, you know, next year we're going to maintain the numerical scale, so should it be 60 to 100 or 70 to 100? Great topic of conversation moving forward, which we've had discussions on that before, and probably about 8 years ago. So that was just one thing that popped up among many conversation points. But it'll be interesting to see after the meeting on the 25th if there are some additional items that, you know, were not brought up on the 11th, which could spur subsequent gatherings, like when we come back in the fall. Because there's obviously a lot of work to do if you look at the transition plan. In terms of trying to address comments of not moving fast enough, I think it was important to point out that teachers and staff are really busy in terms of the next gen science standards and finalizing realignment in terms of Common Core, in terms of literacy standards for all courses, and of course the math Common Core moving forward. So that's one piece, and then the course proficiencies, the goal by the time teachers leave in less than a month would be that every course would have all the proficiencies written and identified, which students will have to demonstrate their academic performance based on those proficiencies starting next year. The transferable skills, which the Agency of Ed is still working on, which the faculty unanimously adopted moving forward, that's not going to be in place for this fall, but in the fall of 2017, as more work needs to occur in terms of the rubrics and how they're going to be calibrated. I think that's an important piece to consider moving forward, is the calibration from teacher to teacher in regards to the learning habits that we've identified so far, and the rubric to get feedback, in particular from students. Look forward to hearing from students in the next couple of weeks in regards to using some time in flex block to gather them in the auditorium. So it was a great first night, in my opinion, and more to come. I don't know, Amy, what were your takeaways on
Yeah, I think
the 11th?
a good sign was it was a nice turnout. It was larger than I expected. I definitely ran out of copies because I wasn't expecting 60 to 70 people. I think one of our challenges was, you know, Liz was so helpful a few months back in helping us try to think through information, feedback, and engagement. And I think the advertisement led people to believe it was somewhere in the range there. So I think that was a lesson learned in terms of communication. When people came in, there were some that thought it was a full-on community engagement, and others thought it was a report card night. So, but despite that, I think people, were really patient. It was a range, as Rob said, a range of reactions, I think, from, again, thank you for taking it slow, to really wish that this could be, moving a little bit more smoothly along the PBGR timeline. People came up and said some really complimentary things afterwards. I had a gentleman come up and say he hadn't really understood the complexity of this. And so while he came out to just hear about the report card, hearing it within the context was really helpful, that this was more complex than he had thought about. A variety of opinions. We had some good feedback that night in terms of comments and questions and concerns that people wrote down. We had some follow-up emails, and we've been collecting those. Liz has been collecting some, and Judy and I have been collecting some. Yeah.
So I think I heard, I just want to clarify, the transferable skills are still being worked on by the Department of Ed?
They've been identified by the
The
department. of Ed.
rubrics, in terms of getting that delineation.
Okay.
So the 5 have been identified, the performance indicators have been written as samples. I met with the regional curriculum directors and confirmed that the vast majority of schools or high schools around here are going with the transferable skills and not changing and revising them much, whereas there's much more sort of revision in things like science and social studies.
That's not problematic at all with this incoming class being the class that has to graduate and show evidence of securing the transferable skills?
It's not this incoming class, it's the following incoming class. So if you remember the timeline, I know it's hard to think about the students, that we agreed that everyone would have a changed report card this year, 9 through 12.
Yeah.
This coming year, we need to build the mechanisms for the transferable skills for the following cohort that's coming up, because the state came out with rubrics on 2 out of 5 of them, so their timeline slowed down.
Okay, so it's not the class, it's not the graduating class of 2020.
Right, it'll be 2021.
2021.
Okay.
I missed that memo, I'm sorry.
And it gives us more time as a state too. Regionally, the other day, the curriculum directors and I were talking about the need to have a conversation about reciprocity across high schools, where we're all building our own PBGR. What happens when a student moves from school to school? So I'm grateful that the schools are adopting at least transferable skills in common.
Yeah, because that's been a conversation at Chittenden County Principals meeting, is not going real fast, but going slower, and making sure that if a student moves from school to school in Chittenden County, it's not a totally different landscape for them. So that's part of the rationale.
Yeah. That reciprocity of a achievement in a class currently is negotiated by the counseling department, right? So somebody comes in with an English class from another high school, there's some negotiation whether that satisfies the English requirement here or not.
It starts with counseling, it usually ends up with me.
Okay. So,
And Bob sits on the other side of it, in that he supports multiple high schools who have multiple graduation requirements, and it's kind of negotiate what experiences here can feed back to their graduation requirements. It's an interesting time in this work, it
Interesting.
really is. But in terms of the other night, I'm so pleased that the attendance, the feedback was great. We hadn't engaged with the students much around the report card. We had planned those events after this event. In hindsight, we should have done it before. Spoke with Colleen, and she mentioned that you had discussed doing some student events between now and the second evening. So we're having a second replication on the 25th. Because student input's really important. We've
Yeah.
talked about broadening our PPGR task team to include students and possibly middle school teachers. So we had some good learnings from the night. We're hosting a second night on May 25th. One of the things that I think was missing was teachers. It was a crazy time of year. Colleen wasn't able to attend for her daughter wasn't feeling well, and we had a couple other teachers who we thought were going to be able to attend and then just didn't. And afterwards, when they learned that there hadn't been teachers in attendance, they said, "Oh, I wish I'd been able to be there." So we're going to work harder to come this next time.
did the union have a representative there?
No,
So no union representation?
no.
I think the only other thing I guess I'll say is that one of the challenges to the evening was the way we had it structured. Not only did people come in with a little bit of confusion about what the topic was based on the different advertisements, but a number of them came in with a lot of misinformation about what was happening. So we ended up having to kind of shift things suddenly as we were going from table to table, encouraging them to focus on 3 questions. There was a lot of misinformation sitting at each table that we found ourselves trying to answer.
You have a sense of where the misinformation coming from?
You know, and any kind of reform that comes from anywhere, could come from teachers, students, community members. The most prevalent one that I heard is we're not grading homework anymore. And I remember sitting here in December saying, we have to keep saying that one out loud, because that's the first misassumption that folks are going to make when they hear this. That we were going right to a 1 through 4. I'm trying to think of some others. We were almost listing them off as people were saying them to us.
I think we heard a little bit about the changes at the middle level, and that transition to the 1 through 4, and parents trying to wrap their heads around that change, and kids as well. A lot of concern to make sure that the way students are accessing the portal, that it makes sense for them, so that if these changes happen, they want to still be able to know I can access this information and what it'll mean with the proficiencies underneath it. So I think as our systems will develop, it'll help support that, but we have to develop systems as much as practices and protocols simultaneously.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. That's really critical, not only to provide an opportunity through the portal to gain information about upcoming changes, and once people start reading that information, to have some sort of a feedback loop as to how far they got and questions. It needs to be more of a dialogue as a development item in the portal itself, because there's multiple parents, could be multiple children looking at all of this
They want to touch it and see what
and
those
see what's going
proficiencies
on,
are.
because that will help
Oh, mhm, Build
align
understanding.
what we have to do and how to best serve needs.
mhm.
And that piece is missing. It's not there. We're trying to do it all by verbal and communications.
Well, I know one of the conversation points at one of the tables I was at was in terms of the middle schools, and they're using jump rope as a way to record and monitor student learning. And we're, for next year, committing to Power School with our 2 learning habits. And one of the main reasons in our conversation was I wanted to support that desire to use Power School and not go to something different, was because of the unification of the board. One of the key decisions they're going to be making are the systems that we're going to implement. So for our staff's perspective, I thought it would be really disingenuous to shift from something like Power School, which has been viewed by teachers, parents, and students as positive, to something different for next year, which could again change the year after. And I think for our teachers' benefit, that's not a good thing to do. So with step 1, we're staying with Power School next year, and then obviously with the decisions that are made moving forward, we will then adhere to what's coming down. But there was a lot of relief when our staff knew that they weren't going to have to learn yet something new and then maybe something else again the year after. So it's a good, in my opinion, step 1 moving forward.
Kathy, did you have any questions? Aaron? Liz?
No, I don't have any questions.
Did the question come up, I mean, there's the why and what's it gonna do to me? Questions that, in that sort of communication are, what are the 20 questions that are gonna come up? Have we tapped into those people that receive our students in some degree? I mean, we have almost 80% that go on to higher ed. There's going to be a concern there. Did some of those questions come up? And then is that part of the 25th to answer some of that question, or are we just saying we need to make this change, or we're making?
Are we talking about college admissions?
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned that at the beginning of the presentation. We had a parent there who was a parent and involved in admissions, and I think certainly, well, not the 25th, but at our next gathering in August or September, if that's more timely, that's a key piece of the presentation, just the recognition that, you know, we're acutely sensitive to what happens at the other end of graduation, and we do not expect our kids to be at a disadvantage, any disadvantage,
Yeah.
moving forward. As a matter of fact, you know, we expect the same success, if not more,
Yeah.
moving forward. But having that said, it will be reassuring to those who aren't as close to the work that we are, that expert blind spot. We don't want to miss something and have admissions people there to help answer questions.
Yeah.
I think that's really good and transparent for our families and communities as we move forward. But not necessarily for this first go-around, although I did touch on that at the beginning.
Yeah.
You forwarded the comments from, I'm assuming, the same admissions person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would it make sense, to involve this person in the next planning of the, to find out what kinds of things would be helpful for us to know about that admissions piece that he or she was bringing up
Well, I
in
can,
the planning?
I can speak to that a little bit. Yes, to answer your question, but also there's, a wealth of information from the Secondary School Consortium. Mark Floyd and I attended a 2-hour session with folks predominantly from Maine, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island who had similar conversations in terms of admissions and what their respective states have done and the information they use. So I know one of the outcomes Amy and I were talking about, and Judy, was, to build like an info website now based on providing information and feedback from questions from those that, have showed up. So for the 25th, hopefully there'll be information/answers which would better inform people before they get there.
Yeah.
Not that that's critical, but it could be helpful. So, but more to come.
I guess the only other observation I'll make is that the folks who attended, to me, represented a sort of a variety of readiness for full-on proficiency-based or standards-based to maybe hold off until my child graduates. I mean, I think it was quite a variety. And I think that it's important to remember that our teachers represent quite a variety around that in terms of beliefs and in terms of their pedagogical readiness. And so there's a great deal of sensitivity to that in terms of helping to support our teachers through this, because, our students need to understand it, our teachers need to understand it, and our families need to understand it. It really all has to be there. And that can feel like a very slow process at times. And so how do we continue to support? You were talking a little bit about the portal. There were those that clearly wanted to still see assignments and tests on the portal, whereas others had a readiness to, no, I could function if you showed me the proficiencies on a portal.
Right.
And it's a wide variety of, I think, users.
Right. And there'll be different preferences, and so there may be a need for a preference definition at some point in the portal development. Just like for the parent that wants to look up proficiency-based guidelines and requirements, once they start reading that, we need to bookmark it if they leave. We need to know how far they got. And that will inform us as to possibly the next area or meeting, maybe updated information. But there's a place for news, a place for different kinds of feedback, and it needs to be discussed. It's a big issue. I mean, it's a lot of things to consider, but a well-developed program like that could really aid in moving the organization and students forward a lot faster with a better understanding too.
Well, I think that spectrum is always challenging, but I think it's also there's also an opportunity there. There's a series of people that are in that camp that can be tremendous advocates, ambassadors of change, can be change catalysts for us. We haven't created a set of system yet to engage them. We're trying to hit that middle. We saw it in the December meeting. There was the full spectrum there, and our approach, which was well practiced as a board chair, is to try to drive that middle, see where that spot is. And there's actually a host of people that we could incorporate to strengthen that message going out, because still a large portion of communication in this community is not going to be initiated by us, and our communication is not going to be, the majority of it is not going to be read or understood. That's just life. So there may be an opportunity going forward, again, having enough time and space. Time, what do you say? Time is the time is the variable.
Learning the constant, time the variable.
Yeah. Time is non-existent, but we need to find that moment to grab those people in the community and on the faculty that are ready to go in the direction that creates an equity in our students, creates the best opportunity for learning, and ensures that every student has every opportunity and option available to them, not the ones that are decided by people far too early in their academic career or another time. So I think we've got to find a way to embrace them, and when we embrace them, we may become the followers of those people.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we have some of the leaders right now that are getting held back to try to wait for the others to catch up. And I know this is change, right? But that waiting is starting to create that kind of, I think that it runs the risk of us losing some of our leaders, because some of that train just doesn't get over the hill.
Mhm. Well, I think that, in the last few faculty meetings I've attended, I'm watching full faculty work through those rubrics, getting examples of how would you do this, and then collaborating, and then calibrating. And is it a 1? Is it a 2? Is it a 3? And I'm also excited about the fact that Essex High School has a writing assessment, an on-demand writing assessment, and a rubric that they have calibrated on, and that I'm seeing more formative assessment happening and more data to respond to. So there's a lot of underpinnings that are happening within the system, so I wouldn't categorize it as not moving forward. I think the challenge in a large high school is to calibrate, and reality is it's always been a challenge with the way our grading practices have been. So I think we're admitting to the need to do this, and folks are getting clearer on what their proficiencies are within their content areas, and we need some practice with that before we move it too fast, because if we get out in front of it too fast, and that risk-taking happens with our faculty, and then there's backlash, that too could be pretty devastating. So it's fragile. It's like a house of cards that we've got going on right now, and through it we need to continue to revisit where we are, move it forward, and as Amy said, it does feel slow at times, but it's something that's happening during the time that they're also teaching and building in other practices as well. So
It's probably worth mentioning, you talk about faculty, we do have teachers who are full-on proficiency base in their classroom right now. So trying to find ways to continue to support those individual teachers who have found a way to make it work with our existing portal, you know, to encourage that and allow more classroom visits. We're taking a group of 10 people down this Friday.
Yep.
This Friday, to New Hampshire, to hear again Gusky. He's got a one-day down there to just continue to support those who want to and have the means and are willing to get out in front. Were you going to say something?
So there's a lot to this conversation, and I've been struggling a little bit about what to say in relation to it. The clear thing that I guess I want to say that the opportunities that exist, I really want to lift up that this is there are a lot of opportunities. Mm-hmm. We're in a challenging time in a lot of ways with our redistricting. I think, and with what's going on with the teachers and with the community, I feel like we have an opportunity to do better, and we know what that looks like and feels like. And I want to make sure that we are being very thoughtful, moving forward, about bringing the community together and making sure that when we do, we know what it is that we're asking of them. And I guess I would like to say that. For reasons that are very understandable, and I'd be happy to tell you what those reasons are. This was another example of a situation in which the community came out for something that was not delivered. And I'm sorry for that for a lot of reasons, but I also appreciate that that what ended up was an opportunity to focus on one thing, which was the report card. Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing we need to do moving forward is making sure that we tell the community what is being asked of them and then deliver on that. I'm not so sure how well that happened this time. Again, to anybody watching and to everyone in the room, this is a tricky time. Who's doing what U46 is responsible for, what the new district is charged with, and how we make that work. A grant that was given to a district that didn't have any students, and yet there are students whose needs are important to meet. There are a lot of things. It won't be perfect. And I think that the community can handle imperfection and ambiguity as long as they feel like there's a plan behind it, which there definitely is. Right. And as long as our community can understand that the people working behind the scenes, whether it's the board or whether it's the teachers or the administration, nobody's trying to do anything other than what is best for the children in our community. And there's like a sort of please trust that that's true kind of message right now while we're in this messiness that I hope people can embrace. I think we as a board need to be accountable for making sure that we're all doing this with the most transparency as we possibly can, and with a communications and engagement plan that is well thought out and part of a bigger picture, and not just here's an issue, let's put out that fire. This is where Nellie Mae can help us, and just to again add some confusion to an already confusing time. Nellie Mae grant, as we all know, was administered to a district that doesn't have students, yet in my opinion, that doesn't matter. We're all responsible for all of our students, and we can take the technical assistance that we have been offered by the team that exists and is working in Essex, and we can work with them on doing better with some clarity and with some planning. So I applaud what happened in a certain way that you went forward with this, even though there was so much messiness. I like mess. Messiness is good as long as there's good intention behind it and that the community can feel that way. What I would hate to have happen is for the community to feel like it's just people to come out and leave more confused than they were when they came, which is some of the feedback that I got is unacceptable. So we have some accountability to make sure that that doesn't happen moving forward. having said that, I do believe that everybody has their best intentions, and that everybody is working towards the same goal. It's just a matter of having, in my opinion, the engagement piece be the essential piece and not the afterthought. And part of what I hope will happen as we move forward is that this part of how we do business will look and feel different. And it's a cultural shift. It's a shift in the whole culture. And that is not one meeting. It's not 2 meetings. It's not even in the fall 5 meetings. It takes some time. And so I would just ask for people to know that best intentions are there, and everybody is working towards the best outcomes for our kids as far as I can tell. So.
Yeah, I think there's so much that has been going on that if we were to just go into next year with the curriculum mapping, the proficiencies identified, and a calibration across, I think Essex High School would be better than it's ever been. I mean, just living that experiment of having twins and going through, it's confounding. And then also just the experience of having 48 or more different types of evaluation in the course of your high school, in the course of 4 years, just going from different ways that this is going to be weighted this way, this is going to be weighted this way, this is how we're going to do it. I mean, we've made some where finals and midterms and so forth, but it just is, it's something that as an adult, none of us would find acceptable. None of us. In every 4 months, to have a different set of evaluators and a different way of being evaluated, even within the same subject content, we'd all sit there and say, that's crazy. So I'm really appreciative of that work, and I think that that's been one of the building blocks that then moves us along. And I just want to be careful that we recognize that maybe our pace has been dictated by the legislature, but these are improvements that have been sought after. I mean, these are things that, just as you said, for 8 years we've been looking at, and that's why there's still bent up energy and emotion, because some of these things are about equity, some of these things are about fairness, some of them have a way of influencing our gap that, you know, we say confounds us, but very well has systemic strength to it. So we're making progress, and it is going to be messy, and especially over the next year. But they're all our kids. That's why we did the unification.
Right. And, you know, to the point about moving forward, I think we tried to, and we find ourselves in that place all the time where there's going to be a change to the report card. We better get out and share that information, but we miss that engagement opportunity. Even after we were all handed the same article about starting the conversation about grading, the first task in successful grading reform is to reach consensus on the purpose of grades. And that's a conversation our community hasn't had yet.
Well, it was part of the design. We would have had it had we used Nellie Mae expertise. In fact, the agenda that was originally set forth was to have that conversation. So I think that what ended up happening really was that there was a difference, the readiness, what Amy was speaking to. And that's something to be very sensitive to. We need to be ready. And if it felt like in this situation, the teachers weren't brought up to speed in time to go out to the community, there's a matter of respect, and it felt disrespectful to if I get this right. But if we do this better and more thoughtfully, and I know that we can, because I know that we have people in the room who are capable of that, I believe that we can avoid that. And that conversation absolutely needs to happen. And we, once again, I just will say, we are lucky and privileged to have the technical assistance team that we do have in our community, one in Virginia and one in Vermont, but working together to help us have these hard conversations. And I would urge us to allow that to happen, to really take them up on some of the facilitation and expertise around this that could help it go better. And to, again, say opportunities are only as good as they are realized, right? So we say we have AVPA, we have STEM, we have access, and when families are feeling like their child doesn't have access or there's inequity, and all these things are things that percolate and are things we need to pay attention to. And I think we are well poised to have these hard conversations because again, I'll go back to good intentions. It's hard. It's hard work to have these hard conversations, but we need to have them, and we need to do it in a way that is clear and part of a bigger plan, and not just in the moment.
Two comments to that. One would be the grading conversation will be a excellent precursor to the huge body of work that will be in the near future, which will include teachers, board members, students, parents, business partners, and a K-12 conversation of what are graduation requirements in a proficiency-based system moving forward. That's, in my mind, there's nothing more important that this community will discuss than that topic in the next few years. And the other piece I was just going to add is Sue McCormick and Alex had what I understand to be, because I received an email today from Sue, a wonderful opportunity with a wide range of Essex High School students last Thursday for an hour and 40 minutes up in C207 to gain student perspective from the so that was an excellent step one.
The Nellie Mae work is, as a sidebar, going along really well. There were 20 students from CTE and EHS in that conversation, and it was a really wonderful conversation that they had. And
ACE and ELL students.
Yep.
It was.
And I think what I hope and think is that once people get a sense of what that kind of meeting feels like, we will all want to have meetings that feel like that.
Oh, yeah. No
so
question.
I think it's, and again, I'll say this is a big shift in the way we operate, but we can do it, and we can be so much stronger for it if we commit to doing that. And I think Kathy and I, as the communications team, will have a role in looking at what we can do moving forward to make it more clear to the community. And I know that Amy and Rob, for the next meeting, the language that will go forward from this moment on will be clear, and we can work towards getting people in the room again for a meeting that they will know what they are coming into the room for, which will be great.
That's great. And being planful, I couldn't agree more. You know, being able to, I mean, we've been working closely with Nellie Mae, pulling together teacher opportunities to speak with them, student opportunities to speak with them. We're invested in that as well. So it's a lot of coordination of time and space, and we're committed to that.
And I will say one more thing about the Nellie Mae moving forward for people who might be watching and for people who might be in the room. What's happening with Nellie Mae is the forming of a planning coalition, and Judy wrote an email, thank you for doing that, to everybody who participated in the community meeting last week, inviting people to be part of a planning team for the fall, which will be about planning engagement around in 4 specific meetings to get the community involved in bigger conversations about education and our district and our new district. That will start in the fall. The building of that planning group is starting right now to get people involved in that work and involved in those conversations that will come later in the fall.
And for the board to know, and Amy can probably speak to it more directly, there was a lot of concern about supports for our teachers and moving this work along. And so we're also using the Grade School Partnership. We've contracted with them to help with coaches coming in to support our work as well. And they work alongside Everyday Democracy and other venues as well. So we're building that support both within, and we'll work to engage. as we get ourselves grounded. So we're kind of in, like you said it best, it's kind of a messy moment in trying to coordinate, new people to the school and setting up some of these meetings. It's been busy. We've been working at it. We'll continue to work hard at it. And, I apologize if anybody came out for a different reason. I thought that it was an opportunity, at least for us, to provide some of the information we've wanted to provide for a while now. And hopefully we can start to shift that culture for the engagement opportunities that are in the wings and needed to happen soon. So thank you for bringing that support in.
Sure. So any of us that can be there on the 25th, I think that would be great. If there could be board members in the
Yeah.
room and teachers, I know you're making an
Mhm.
effort to do that. I wanted to also apologize for being late tonight. I left the lacrosse game and drove to St. Mike's. There was an accident. It took me 50 minutes to get from the high school to St. Mike's and back. But anyway, so I apologize.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
We're glad you got here safely.
We good? Okay. We added to the agenda an update on the reassignment, the request by Franklin Northwest to have a technical center.
Franklin West. Yeah.
Franklin West. To have a reassignment of their regional technical center from CTE to Franklin West.
Right. So I just wanted to let the board know that on Friday evening, I received an email with a scheduling update that the State Board of Education will consider the CTE region change request of Franklin West Supervisory Union at their May meeting, which is Tuesday, May 17th. And there was a link to the agenda. And it's at Hazen Union High School in Hardwick tomorrow. So I sent an email back requesting some information from both Secretary of Education and Greg Glennon, who's spearheading some of this work on her behalf. And I just wanted to know if Bob and I should be there, what we needed to do to prepare, what the recommendation may be, so that we're prepared with any materials that might be reviewed if they needed anything. And I learned that the submissions that we've included in your org updates are the submissions that are being included in the state board for all of our state board members. So they're looking at all of those. They've been provided with all of those letters that you've seen as well. That the recommendation of the secretary will be part of the board's deliberative process leading up to any action it takes on the record at the meeting. So as I asked in advance if she would share that, I've learned that prior to that happening, it's not a public record yet. So we're uncertain at this moment in time what the recommendation is going to be. So I just sent a note back because this deeply concerns me that our students have access to technical education programs, and the landscape seems to be changing around us in that question. And I shared with my response that you've also received the testimony I provided the House Ed Committee asking if they would please delay any decisions until the Act 46 conversations and study committees have worked through some of the changes in governance structure in our state. I'm not sure if that'll be something that'll be brought up, but I'm surely planning to attend to be able to voice that concern, because as people change, I don't want to see technical education caught in the midst of these changes and affecting program and access for students. So I'll keep you posted of the decision, and I'll be able to share the outcome at your June 6th meeting, which is in a couple weeks. And maybe provide an update in advance if there's something that I can share.
So you're anticipating that a decision will get made tomorrow?
Yes.
There's a vote scheduled.
Okay. I mean, I
Warren doesn't-
personally would love to know, I'd love to know how it goes, like tomorrow, or the day after. I mean, you know, I'd rather
Yeah.
not wait till June, and, is there an appeal process if we feel that there's no appeal process?
It's not in,
It's
it's
just a-
not in legislature or state board rule that I can find.
Okay. Just curious.
So we'll let you know as soon as we know, and what we know. So it is warned as an action item. I'm not sure they'll take action, but
Are you planning to go,
I am.
Bob?
I'll be there.
Okay. No, I think it's important we have a presence there to answer any questions.
I do too, Al. I agree.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. I'm sorry I didn't give you earlier notice. I just learned over the weekend. I'm so hoping it'll be a good decision on behalf of kids. That's all I can say. And we'll try to influence that as much as we're able to.
One of the potential paths, if there were to be a decision tomorrow, it could impact the fall, right?
I don't think it'll impact this fall because we've already gone through our admissions process, and students have been accepted to programs, and
Yep.
they're planning on coming, and they would be grandfathered anyway,
Mm-hmm.
is my understanding. And I don't think it's St. Albans, Northwest Tech Center would be the
Yeah.
new receiving tech center if it was request was granted. They're not poised to accept those students.
Right. They would need
So-
time to scale.
Sure. So I think any decision they're making is really about the following year.
Yep.
Lots of stuff happening.
That concludes the business that we've warned.
I just had one other item, if I could add it. The UU Policy Committee is going to be looking at 4 policies in the relatively near future. So if this board or any of the members have any feedback, and I'll be glad to take it, I'm sure Liz would as well. The 4 are transportation. Transportation has a potentially big budget impact. We'll be certainly, I believe, looking at a possible walking program in Essex Town and transportation out there, but also a similar program for Essex Junction. And I'm not sure about Westford, since they have their transportation in place. The next one is class sizes, responsible IT use, and the 4th one is proficiency-based graduation requirements, taking into account both Carnegie and Flex Pathways alternatives. So those are 4 big items. At one of the Red Study meetings, as I recall, there was a request by the administration to purchase 9 new buses. I suspect it would be for additional transportation. But I'm not sure how this might work out. There are a lot of discussions here about what age group to walk, how far out, road conditions, sidewalks,
Yep.
crossing guards, all on the table.
Yeah.
But those
Well,
are,
I mean, I'm sure that will be work that we can continue to monitor through the blog, the webpage, and I'm sure something like transportation would be a well-attended public meeting of the committee.
It would be my expectation as well.
That'll be a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? One second. Great, and I'll move us to adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you.